how are you offering hope to me? Maybe it's I offer hopeful tips on how to ... on Instagram every Monday. Come follow me on Instagram. That's a call to action. As a audience member, I need to know what you want me to do and write around that offer.
So what are the important components to include when creating your author website? And if you already have a website, how can you give it a little checkup to be sure it reflects your current brand and mission of serving your readers? That's what we're talking about today with my friend and guest, Angela Bouma. With 20 plus years in the marketing and design world, Angela works side by side with authors to build a brand that helps them strengthen their relationships with audiences that need their God-given message. Angela and I have worked with several of the same authors, and she's so highly respected. When Angela isn't at her computer building a new website or implementing an email automation, she's shuffling her 3 kids to and from a variety of extracurriculars in the heart of ag country in California's Central Valley. Angela is pretty passionate about author websites, and I can't wait for you to hear our conversation. So let's get to it. Hi, I'm Kim Stewart, and this is the Book Marketing Mania podcast. Let's learn and share together what's working now to meet new readers, market your message, and make a bigger impact online. Hey, Angela, thanks for coming on to serve the Book Marketing Mania listeners. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thanks so much for having me, Kim. I'm excited to talk to your audience.
Me too. Hey, so if somebody is new to you, would you share a little fun fact about yourself?
Ooh, a fun fact. Okay, this isn't going to tell you much about me, but fun fact, I used to coach cheerleading.
Oh, wow. Were you a cheerleader?
I was. In high school, I was a cheerleader. And then I coached at the local private school for a couple years. Best thing ever. I'm still friends with most of my girls. They're all having babies of their own now and makes me feel really old, but it was so much fun. I miss it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, and you were saying before we started, you had a loud voice, right? So that's perfect for cheerleading.
It was perfect. Yeah. I was perfect for mothering
everyone in the neighborhood's
kids and also cheerleading. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, and also, do you know your Enneagram number?
I do. Now, don't hold it against me. Don't turn us off. I'm an 8.
At 8. Okay. That's what my husband is. And I'm a little quiet 9. So I love learning everybody's Enneagram numbers. Okay. So y'all heard in my introduction how awesome Angela is at designing websites and helping authors with their brands. And so I just wanted to bring her on and talk about that. And so, Angela, can you share with us, for you personally and as a professional, how you define an author's brand and why it's so important to have one?
Yeah, this is a really important component of the business side of being an author. And it is very difficult for most people, especially starting out, kind of trying to decide what that even means and then what you do with it. So when I start working with people, we really talk about your personality coming across in everything that you put out there, your desired feeling that you want people to get from when they read from you, when they see a post from you. So all of that we start at the very basic level, which is logos and colors and fonts. So those are like the visual portions of your author brand. But how we choose all those things is based on what your author personality is. I mean, who's your audience? Are you talking to adults, kids, young moms, women who are empty nesters? Like we want to know all of those things, but we also want it to tie into who you are. So there's this fine line about you loving it, but also it serving your audience. So that's what I help authors wade through. Sometimes it does feel like you're wading through quicksand in that department, but I love it. So I love helping authors do that portion.
That's so great. Yeah. Oh gosh, I need all kinds of help in that area for sure. And I know a lot of authors do too. So how do you do you just have lots of questions that you ask your authors to kind of dig into that if they don't really know? Like I know a lot of authors and myself too, like I can pick out the colors I like and the fonts I like, but how do you then translate that to, will my target audience like it?
Yeah, that's where it all comes back, right? Is the chicken or the egg kind of situation. But as an author, you know what you're going to write about, and you know what the purpose of your writing is for. At least you should. That's the very basic thing that you should like start out with. What are you writing for? And if it's because God told me to, that's a great start. But then what did he tell you to write about? And what parts of, generally we're talking about your story, what parts of your story. So what are you providing? Are you providing hope? Are you providing education? Are you providing just comic relief? Let's talk about what you're providing, and then we'll go from there. So as much as somebody might like a color, that generally doesn't translate all the time into something wonderful. So some of the colors that are really hard to work with, for instance, are yellow. Well, that's a joyful color. I want to provide joy. Okay, well, that's great, but yellow is really hard to see online. And so we go through all the steps of picking the right shade of that, yada, yada. The other part of that is I always tell authors to go get a photo shoot done, because I want to see what they've chosen to wear. And what they choose to wear shows me a lot about who they are, the type of style that they like to wear, what they're comfortable in. If you're also a speaker, what would you wear if you were going to a speaking event, speaking engagement? And that alone will show a lot of your personality and the message that you're trying to bring across to your audience. Not everybody is good in picking out clothes. I will say, like, if that's not your favorite thing to do, if you have a hard time with that, get a best friend, get your daughter, get someone out there who knows you really well that can help put those outfits together. But that is a really good indicator for me on like the colors that you like. And like I said, just what you want to portray to your audience, what sets you apart from the other authors who are writing Christian nonfiction, or what sets you apart from other podcasters. What's that one thing that can really elevate you over somebody else? It's not a competition. That's not what we're talking about, because we want to help each other out. But there has to be something different about you to bring interest. There's a lot of noise out there. Mm-hmm. So you got to set yourself apart just a bit.
So when you talk about a photo shoot, are you talking about like when an author might go get some, like what we call branded photos for their website? Is that what you're talking about? So like those are the photos they want to use, and then you kind of build the website around that. Exactly. And so what if they didn't do that? Because I'm just thinking, could you like pull some pictures off your phone of where you've been at certain events, and then just say, Angela, here's some pictures of me that I really like, but they may not go on the website, but at least it gives you a feel of who I am.
100%. I Facebook stalk everyone. Oh, so that gives me I know everyone that's ever worked with me is like, wait, what? I Facebook stalk everyone to kind of see, number one, again, who they are, what are they posting? Because that's what's important to them. But then for pictures of them and other pictures that people post of them as well. Because again, what we wear can sometimes really show who we are. Now, if you can't get a branding shoot, there's so many things we can talk about photography about. Branding photo shoots are different than headshots. I just want to put that in there. Little, tidbit. Headshots are not the same as a branding photo shoot. So as authors, you need a headshot for that back of the book cover. And you need a headshot for Amazon. But for everything else, you're going to need more than just your head. So think about that as you're going forward and getting photos done of yourself. Now, photos off your phone. I know many people who just do their branding photo shoots from their phone. Our phones have great cameras on them. Yeah. So they are high quality because they're so large. They have enough pixels to get us through on the website. So that's more than fine. If you have someone, again, your teenage daughter or one of her friends probably knows how to work that camera really well and can take some really good photos. So it doesn't have to be an expensive feat at all. It just is a necessary thing to get people to see who you are. I have a lot of picture resistant authors. I don't want my face all over my website. No, sorry. You have to have your face and your book covers all over that website, because writing is a very personal experience, and people want to know who their authors are when we're talking nonfiction.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about their website. So for authors creating a new website, or maybe they've had a website for a while and they're ready to do kind of a rebrand of it or a refresh, what are the most important components that they should have on there?
Yeah, a lot of people will come and think, okay, I need a website because I'm starting this thing. And then I give them their to-do list. And it's a little bit overwhelming. So it's a great, great question. Content is king. It always has been, it always will be. So what you're putting on your website is the most important thing. And a designer, anybody, not just me, but we can't really design things without words that go on it, right? So we need all the words. I need all the words. I'm not going to write for you because I don't know your voice. So what do we need to write about? Well, we need an introduction, right? We need to know who you are. When I come to your site, I need to know why I care about who you are. Probably I've seen you either in person or I've seen your post. A friend of mine has posted about you, and I'm coming to see what you have to offer. So when you're writing content for your site, you really have to, it's a really fine dance of weaving in who you are, what your offer is, and how you're relating to your desired audience in that content. You're building authority with that content. So this is why you should listen to me about this, right? Obviously, you don't want to say it that way, but either it's life experience, education, hopefully a mix of all of it, the road you've had to travel, some kind of story that says, this is what I'm going to talk about. This is how we relate to one another. This is what you can find here. So that's really the most important component for any author website. If you have books already out there, great. If not, you need to start writing some articles, because I need to see, if you're telling me you're a writer, I want to see that you can write. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's just a couple key articles or a couple key just short stories or whatever it is that works with the kind of writing that you're putting out into the world, so that I can see that you can actually write. Because if you have a book coming out next year, I want to make sure it's worth the money that I'm going to spend on it. It's really strange. People will go spend, $6 on a coffee 3 times a week, but they won't buy an $18 book. It's crazy. It is just a weird, I think it's because it's a time commitment. It's not instant gratification kind of thing. But if I know your writing is really good, then I'm much more likely to purchase that book off the shelves, because let's get real, there's a lot of books out there. I have a lot of options, right?
Very true.
So if you're an author, make sure you have some writing on your site. If you don't, you're just a blogger, right? Or you're just a person with a website. And we want them to see more than that. So components, really, I would say the biggest, most important thing is your content. Be prepared for a designer to say, okay, do you have your content ready? And if you're a slow writer, you might want to start on that before you start reaching out about websites, because it can take a while to write about yourself. It really can. It's really very difficult. And there are a lot of resources out there on what to write on each page of your site. So that's the next component of a website, is what pages go on your website, right?
Yes.
And that will depend on who you are and what your offer is, and what you want people to know about you. So it could be a really simple 1-page website to start you out, just to get your, start building your list, things like that. Or it can be very lengthy. You can have a home page. You can have a services page if you're offering coaching, or if you're offering something down those lines, or a book. If you'll have a book page if you have a book ready to sell, even if it's just a link to Amazon. We want to highlight that on your site. Maybe it's an about page, because if you have a really involved story, you don't want to throw all of that up necessarily on the home page. You want people to be able to contact you. So we'll have some kind of contact form, even though you don't need to necessarily have a whole page for that. And then you want people to sign up for your list. You want to build a list, right? If you're trying to be traditionally published, they want to know how many people are on your mailing list. So you got to start a list. So you need some components like a MailChimp or a ConvertKit or something like that to start building your list and integrate into your site. Now, if that just blew your mind, that last sentence, that's what we're here for. Integrate into your website is what we do. In fact, we set it all up because that can be overwhelming. MailChimp and things like that can be overwhelming. And they change all the time. Oh,
yes.
Leave it alone, right? Yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Just all the different pieces that come into play. Can you kind of walk through so if somebody was just starting out, and like you say, they could just have a 1-page website. So say they do that, and what would you have on that, just your front page? just to represent, and I know everybody's different, but what are just some main components, just even for that one page? So I'm a reader or a potential reader, and maybe I've seen you post something on social media and that's led me over to your website, or maybe I heard you on a podcast interview like this and it led me over to your website. What would you encourage to make sure that they have on that one page?
You want a picture of yourself, and it has to just be a good picture. Okay. It doesn't have to be a most professional, but it has to be a good picture of yourself. Kind of your introduction, statement, right? What you're here for, what you do, who you do it for, and how you're going to deliver on that. So your statement of purpose, there's probably a better phrase for it, but think again about a really quick statement of people, so people can know what you're all about. At least a couple strong paragraphs about your story. And then the thing that most people are missing is the offer. Why do I care about what you're telling me, right? What am I here for? What can you offer me? So you always want to think about the offer. A lot of people tell me, well, I'm offering hope, but that doesn't answer my question. Like, how, with your one-page website, how are you offering hope to me? Where, like, maybe it's, I offer hopeful tips on how to ... on Instagram every Monday. Come follow me on Instagram. That's an offer. That's more specific. That's a call to action. So we want a call to action on the site. One call to action per page is the best option. It's at least decisions I have to make as a human being, the more likely I am to make it from your website. So that is what I would say one page would need to have on it. So it could be really, really simple. Just don't forget that as a audience member, I need to know what you want me to do with this information. And that is what most people come to me. Here's my content. And I'm like, yeah, there's no offer here. I don't know what to do with this information as a reader. So you should start probably with that and write around that offer.
Because it changes over time, right? I know that we both have worked with authors that have multiple books out over time, and so each one you're kind of focusing on, that's your offer right now. You really want people to buy your most recent book, but like you say, they may be offering coaching, they may be focusing on list building, so they want to have that front and center. So I think that's great. And then if they want to go to more of an advanced website, then they can have the different tabs, like you were talking about with their different services. Maybe if they have some other freebies or they have a blog. So when we're talking about content, you're talking about the content you would give a website designer like yourself to build the website. They might also have content as in blog content or podcasting content, but that's what you're talking about, is more the content that's about them and about the services they offer, and their books and how they're going to help their readers. What about the social media profiles? Because I know that is one of my biggest pet peeves when I land on a website and I cannot figure out how to go connect with them on social.
So there's a lot of people out there that say, don't put your socials on your website. And I think that's a mistake, because again, that's the way people want to connect with somebody, or at least get to know them and decide if they want to connect with somebody. A lot of us are very list apprehensive. Like, I don't want to give you my email because I don't need another email in my inbox, but I'm happy to follow you on Instagram. So my argument always is, put those suckers on your site. I usually put them on the footer of a website. I keep footers very, very simple, but I always have those on the footer because people generally will go look there. And then always on a blog post, if you're blogging or you're podcasting, make sure that those links are on every single post or episode, not just as share buttons, because obviously we want people to share those, but also if I've already seen somebody share it and I'm coming to your site for the first time, I want to be able to go find you. So those are the key areas that I make sure they're on. I don't usually put them at the very top in the menu bar. There's several reasons for that. I don't want people to leave your site right away. I want them to stay on it for several reasons. Search engine optimization is much better if someone stays on your site for more than 3 seconds. So I want them to at least scroll to the footer to find it.
Yeah.
So I definitely think it's worthwhile. And just like a contact, I feel like if you don't have a contact on your site, how can I get a hold of you, right? And some people don't want to be gotten hold of. I get that. And you will have more spam than actual emails from people you want to hear from. It's just the law of the land. We do as much as we can to root that out. But those bots are really smart. So it's the same thing with contact. Social media and contacts should be somewhere easy to find on your site, and in multiple locations. So any landing pages that you that someone would come to, like a blog post or an episode of your podcast, I would make sure those are on there too. So
What about, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your experience helping authors communicate their brand through their website and their graphics? I know a lot of people, well, we have a lot of questions about websites, but I know a lot of people also wonder just, what their graphics ought to look like. So can you just kind of talk about your services, and maybe you can even touch on some of the authors that you've helped along the way?
sure, absolutely. It does all roll in together, right? Like you start with your branding, and then you start with that because you want to use it everywhere. You want to use it on your website and on your graphics that go on social media and on your slides that go on your presentation for such and such event. Like you want to be able to use that because you want people to know it's you. They will start recognizing as they're quickly scrolling through their Instagram feed. Oh, wait, I'm going to go back up because I know that was Kim and I really want to know what she has to say today because I love her posts, that kind of thing. So it might get boring to you that the look and feel of your posts have been the same forever and ever, but that's like home for the people who follow you. It's a comfort level. And so they will recognize it and stay. So for an example of someone who's had the same looking brand for quite some time, Sharon Janes,
Uh-huh.
she's only written like 30 something
Yeah.
books or so. She's been a client of mine for several years. I do her social media graphics every month, and I have
Uh-huh.
for, I don't even know, 6 or 7 years. We have not changed her branding at all.
Mm-hmm.
And she's got great click rates. She's got great responses. And yes, she has a lot of followers, but we haven't changed her branding. And her branding
Mm-hmm.
is really a font and a logo and pictures. We use
Uh-huh.
pictures for her stuff. So she provides hope. She provides kind of like advice type posts, that kind of thing. So and a lot of it's marriage related. So a lot of our pictures are couples, things like that. Her images are really clean because that's what we started out. We want them really clean. We want them light. We want them, just really fresh. And so that's the feeling we want people to get when they see them. And so we've carried that on for years. That doesn't always work. For someone like her who puts out a book, every other month, we can't just keep changing her brand to whatever her book looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So it works across the board.
Hey, I wanted to give a quick shout out to one of our listeners who left a review of the show. Karen says, Kim takes the fear out of marketing by providing guest tips and tricks and free resources to help readers find your book. Thank you, Karen. I'm so glad you find the show helpful. Karen DeArmond Gardner is the nonfiction author of Hope and Healing from Domestic Abuse, Reaching for God's Promise of Real Freedom. And you can connect with Karen on Instagram at Karen Gardner Author. And hey, if you'd like to have a shout out on the show, be sure to leave a review. I'd be so grateful, and it will help other authors discover the show.
Most of the clients that I work with, I offer my branding package includes templates in Canva for Instagram and Facebook. Or if you're a LinkedIn person, or what we'll move that around. We'll basically make templates for something that you post on often that needs images. So I think it's so important because you have all this stuff and you're like, how do I put this together? And so we show you how to put it together. We put them together first. I do a training video on how to use the components that I've placed on a box, basically a square to, post on Instagram, and how you just make little tweaks here and there to make it look like you, but don't keep it so boring. The background doesn't always need to be teal if you have 5 brand colors, but they do need to be all these 5 brand colors, like switch in between them, just little tiny tweaks, but people will get to know you as they go through their feeds. They'll see it and they'll know it's you. So it's much more simple just to keep it simple and just keep using the same thing over and over again. So usually you get about 3 to 5 templates from my team. And again, a video that'll show you like, okay, you have this. Now you swap out this photo and you make this line white instead of teal, that kind of thing, just to
Mm-hmm.
show you you can really make a graphic look completely different and yet the same.
Mm-hmm.
Many different ways. And that's what you want. You want variety, but you don't want you want your people to know it's you. When you're starting a brand, all bets are off, and you want more consistency when you're first starting. Because people are just getting to know you. Or if you're switching your brand completely, you really want things to look very similar. They're, oh, hey, wait a minute. They changed. Okay, this is this is Kim. So
Mm-hmm.
they know it's you. And then as you go on, you can mix it up a little bit more. But that would be my advice, is just find some templates you can work with, and don't feel the need to change up everything every single time you make a graphic.
Mm-hmm.
Angie at Live Steady On is a great example of this. We did her site and her branding last year. She already had a logo, so we did in colors. We didn't even need to do that portion. I just wrapped it all together for her and made some graphics. And she's literally used the heck out of those graphics. And it's so consistent. Go into her Canva account. There's like 1,000 different things in there, and they all look really similar, but
Uh-huh.
it's great because her numbers are going up because she's so consistent with it. And she's not worried about boring anybody,
Mm-hmm.
because nobody's bored except her. So that's a really important part, especially people who I get bored easily. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about you, it's about your audience. And if you want to grow
Right.
that audience, you go be bored about it, but let them recognize you. So I
Yeah,
would
that's
love
a great point. I love what you said about Sharon's, well, just both of them, they really know their audience well. But I love that. Yeah. I mean, Sharon, of course, I've known her for years. All her books that she's wrote have been so incredible. And just that comfort level, like you talk about, just knowing that you are trying to attract new readers, but the whole point is, right, you're going to attract them, and then they're going to see the consistency, right, that's there
exactly
in your brand, but also that comfort level of the followers that you've had for years. You don't want to just throw something new at them all of a sudden. It's totally different the very
right.
next day. And so obviously it's working for both of them. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
So what about, I know you do also do one sheets for speakers and authors, and I'm guessing podcasters too. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of having something like that if you're going to go out and, propose yourself to be a speaker somewhere, whether it be on a podcast or a live speaking event?
Yes, let's talk about those, because those are kind of one of my pet peeves. I'll tell you. I have this speaker sheet and they send it to me, and the font is usually 8 and there's 3 million words on it. As a former event planner, my eyeballs don't know what to look at. There's just so much information. So again, keep it simple. You want to tell someone enough to say, you know what you're doing, without overwhelming them with your shoe size and how many kids you have. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a huge difference. It's an interest sheet. It's not a life story. You're not writing them a book. You're literally giving them the sheet so that they're interested in you, and then they will either call you for more information, go to your website and get more information. That's why having a speaker page on your website, if that's what you're doing, is really important. This is just to pique my interest. So again, why are you different than her? Why are you different? You're talking about marriage. How are you going to talk to the women at my church differently than somebody else has already done 3 years ago? What makes your message different, and why do my people need it? So when you're talking about either your website or your speaker one sheet, you're really talking to a completely different audience than your actual audience, because you're talking to an event planner. So
Mm-hmm.
people forget that part. They write their speaker page as, your audience is reading it. No, an event planner is reading that page. They're deciding if they want to bother calling you or not. So what do they need to know? Well, they need to know what you provide for the event. They need to know, obviously, what you can talk about. They need to know why you can talk about it. Like, what kind of, chops do you have in this? A video on your site, about just a 2-minute video of you actually speaking, goes much longer way than all the words to all of the talks that you'll do. Like,
Mhm.
that's great that you do all those talks, but I want to see if you can put 3 sentences together that make sense.
Mhm.
If you're really concerned about speaking for churches and for Christian events, you need to make sure you bring across the point that you actually love Jesus
Mhm.
somewhere in there. And don't say it like that. I love Jesus. No, that's not what
Right.
I mean. If you're going to bring a biblical point of view to a subject, write that in there. What is your big biblical point of view? I speak about this based on this verse, and this is what your audience will learn from it. Bullet points, that kind of thing. So keep it simple, but drive home what that event planner will need to know to take the next step with you.
That's
And
great on the, yeah.
always contact information. And I say that because the very first speaker sheet I did, I forgot to put contact information on.
Oh, yeah. I bet
Live
that
and
happens a
learn.
lot, right?
Live
Yeah.
and learn. And it was actually something we were mailing out and had to get printed, when we used to print things and mail
Mm-hmm.
things. Yeah, it was big fat money mistake too. So yeah, contact information, very important.
Great. I love how you lined out what their speaking page would look like. Because we often wonder that, right? We want to say we're an author and a speaker, but we don't maybe have that information on there. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like you say, and that who the target audience of that one page is the event coordinator, not
Yep,
our target audience that we're going to be speaking to. So that's so helpful. And that's also a great, like you talked about in the beginning, the call to action have on your homepage. If you're trying to up your speaking career, then why not just put it front and center that you'd like to speak at events, and then they can go look at that page and learn more about you.
definitely. Yeah, I think for multiple page websites, your homepage should be kind of the map of all the things that you do and offer. It's just a little smattering of all the offers that you have. I speak, I coach, I write, and then those all take people to that next page to dig in deeper. So there's only a few websites out there that I have built that we don't really focus it down like that, but those are
Mhm.
authors and speakers that have been around for a long time, and people come because they already know that person.
Mhm.
Everyone else that I build sites for, it's generally like, let's get a little bit of everything you do on that homepage, because I want people to know that you do all these things.
Mhm.
And then we'll take them to a page that opens that whole part of your world up a bit more. So keep that in mind as well. Yes, exactly. If you want to be a speaker and you're an author, you want to have a speaking page, but you also want to have that a little bit of that content on your homepage.
That makes me just think about, our whole goal here is right to meet new readers and market our message. And like you say, some authors may have it just more simplified on their homepage because they are typically getting people to the homepage that already know everything they have to offer, and they're coming just for one specific reason. But for other authors that may be again out like guest podcasting, or they're communicating with their new readers on social media and leading them back to their website, it's kind of nice to see, oh, there's all these things you have to offer. It's not just one thing. And they may have heard you talking about a different topic, and they may land on your website and discover you have a book about a totally different topic that's important to them. So it's nice to see all the things you have to offer for sure. So if somebody doesn't have a budget to outsource their website design, do you have resources you could recommend to DIY it? And maybe can you share the differences? I don't know if you have templates or what resources you do have to share with us, Angela, but can you kind of share the difference also between the different websites like WordPress, Show It, those kinds of different
Sure.
things. Like, I don't know anything but WordPress and Squarespace. So I'm anxious to learn
Yes.
this myself.
Yeah, there are so many options out there, and it can be really overwhelming when you're looking at them. And most of them sell themselves. It's super easy to do this all by yourself. No, it's generally not. That's generally not the case unless you're really tech savvy, and you have a good idea of what you want to do. So let's go over some of the options that I would say, yes, go ahead and use these if you want to do it yourself. So Squarespace has done a lot of rebuilding their platform in the last few years, and it is a pretty good platform. Wix is a platform that I have used several times. Lots of my clients use Wix, and little known fact, my site is on Wix. I try not to throw that out there because my favorite is WordPress, and that
Mm-hmm.
is the one I recommend the most for most people because it will grow with you the easiest. Um, some of the drawbacks to things like Wix are that if you want to change your site in a couple of years, you can't just change a theme. You actually have to build another site, or you just have to custom build every page, which is neither here nor there. It is just a thing that you have to do. But the thing with Wix is you could go to it right now and pick a theme, and they host it for you. You pay everything in one spot, and you can start just taking out their text and putting your own text, and you can have a site up relatively quickly, as long as you just replace what they have with your content and your pictures and not start moving things around. That's when people get in the weeds and start having some issues. So Wix is one of those kind of drag and drop builders. Everything's very visual. There's no hard coding. You can switch over to a mobile view and then switch things around so it'll look good on mobile. So you can do that there. Showit is another really nice one. It's really gained a lot of popularity in the last few years. It's also a visual builder. I've used it with a few clients. I actually enjoy using it. However, I don't love it for blogging, because you still have to have a WordPress blog that integrates with your Showit website. To me, that is bonkers. I know why they're doing it, but for my clients, that is so much work. And so I just don't love that option for anyone who's going to be blogging. Podcasts is different. I used to say podcasting too, but that is different because it can be taken care of on the hosting side. Podcasts can, and embedding podcasts is a lot easier than it used to be. So that's a different story. So if you're going to blog at all, I wouldn't use Showit. If you're going to blog, I would honestly use WordPress. It is the most robust and simple blogging tool you can use once your site is actually designed. So it's really hard. The upfront stuff is harder with WordPress. Once you get it moving, it's a lot simpler. So all of these options have different pros and cons. The back end of stuff, the techie kind of stuff, you have to have a host. You have to have a domain name. Generally, you can host and buy your domain from one place, but sometimes it's cheaper not to. There's all these little things. So I would, even if you have to DIY the rest of it, I would get with someone who knew the technical portions first and get their advice on what to do, or have them do it for you, whatever it happens to be, because those little components are a big deal. And let me just really convolute the conversation just a little more, because it's what I do. I'm just all over the place with this. Email, having a professional email. So what that means is having an email that is connected to your domain name. So for me, BaumaDesignCo.com is my domain name, and I have an email that's Angela at domain name, right? So that domain name email can go from my host, or I can purchase it from Google Workspace. And the reason I bring this up is because most of us go the free route and do it through our host. But in 3 years, when our host gets bought out by someone who's not very good at what they're doing, or the price goes up so high and we need to move our site, we also have to move our email. And that is a situation. Okay. You need someone professional to do that in order to not lose the last 3 years of your emails if you have it with your host. So I tell people, if you're going to spend the money, go buy it from Google Workspace, integrate it with your Gmail account, make your life easier. You'll never have to move it instead of doing it through your host. Now, if you have done it through your host this whole time and you have 14 emails, forward them to somewhere else and then switch your email. It's not a big deal. But having a domain name email will help your delivery rates from MailChimp or ConvertKit. Then some of them require a domain name email to send emails out from their systems, because if you're sending out from Gmail or Yahoo, it's going right to spam if it's coming from MailChimp or whatever. So that was my caveat. I wanted to throw that in there, because that is one of those technical pieces most people don't even think about, realize, know. And I just like to head people off from making that mistake at the beginning. So
yeah. And so just to clarify, you're talking about so if you were to use just Angela@gmail.com, it's probably going to hit a lot of spam filters when you try to email your list.
Right.
But then when you're talking about Angela at BaumaDesigns.com, you're saying you could have actually bought that email address from Google Suite instead of going through your domain provider. Okay. I didn't know you could do that. I mean, I have a G Suite. I know how to do that part, but I didn't realize you could have purchased it from there. I thought you had to purchase it from your domain.
No, you do have to connect it to your domain eventually, but Google will be hosting it. So even if I moved my domain, if I moved my hosting
Uh-huh.
from Wix to WordPress, my email, I would just go into Google and switch a few things out there and I would be done.
Okay.
It's way different than having to move all my email.
Right.
And it's
Okay.
called Google Workspace now. They just
Uh-huh.
changed a couple of months ago. So if you're looking into that, check into Google Workspace.
Okay.
So
Okay, that makes sense. I guess I was thinking of, yeah, you're talking about your hosting versus your domain because you already own your
right.
domain. So you should be able to get to that. I never even put those two together. So that's awesome to learn that today about because I love G Suite or Google Workspace now that is it's
Mm-hmm.
called. But it's an important tip to know that, yeah, because sometimes a lot of times down the road when people do like a rebrand or things like that, they're shopping around, right, for
That's
hosting
exactly
services
right.
and they might move things and that could be a big pain for sure.
It is difficult. And back to your original question, WordPress is the one I recommend the most because it's the most growable.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the right word, but that's the word that's coming to mind. It's really got the biggest bang for your buck in the long run. So if you're going to continue to grow your business and you're eventually going to have a store and you're eventually going to have a podcast and you're going to eventually have a blog, like all of these things that you're hoping to add to your business, WordPress is the easiest out of the box for those things. I'm not saying you can't do it on the other things. In fact, several of my clients that have Wix have stores on their Wix websites and it works just fine. They get their money, people get what they purchased. So there are different things about each solution. So for a store, I would say Wix or WordPress. For a blog, I would say WordPress. For a simple website, Showit is great. They have fantastic templates. 1 million people make a ton of money just creating templates for Showit. And you can go buy one for $150, I think, and they're gorgeous.
Uh-huh.
So that's a great example if you're just going to have a home base online. You just need to have a page out there. Showit
Mm-hmm.
might be a great. And you're never going to blog and you're never going to do all these other things, then Showit is great. And then there's Squarespace. And the same thing, Squarespace, there's lots of people who have templates for Squarespace as well. Generally, templates with Squarespace, though, come with like 2 pages. And so it's kind of limiting,
Uh-huh.
but it's doable. So there's a learning curve to all of them. Every single one of them have a learning curve. So just know that going in, there is going to be an investment, whether it's your time or your money or both, there's going to be an investment in
Yes.
making this happen. But you can do it on your own. People do it all the time.
And it's so important, right, to have some kind of presence on the web that people can come and learn about you and your books. So tell us also about your brand health checklist you have if people would like to maybe see how they're doing and how their website is doing today.
Yeah, this one's really easy. If you go to my website, it's right there on the front. You can sign up to download the brand checklist. And basically all it is saying, are these things on your site? Are you doing this on social? And they're really quick, it's a checklist, a really quick tip on, making that particular thing happen. And this is good for a once a year for people who have been online for a long time to go and download. If you have a website already and you're like, oh, I'm locked in, go download it and see if everything on that list is there. They're really simple to-dos if they're not there. So maybe it's adding your social media icons and links to your website. That's what I think is one of the tips on there. So they're easy and simple. I think the last one's a little bit more complicated, but it's just a good way to make sure that everything you're doing and putting out into the world all tie together. And that's really what you want to remember. If you're rebranding or if you have a book coming out, does your homepage say anything about that new book? Are you going to be speaking at homeschool conventions for the next year? Does your homepage say anything about that? Like, those are things that you want to remember. You kind of get your site up and then you leave it alone and you're done and you move on
Mm-hmm.
with your life. But people are coming. If you're out in the world, people
Mm-hmm.
are going to come look for you. So whatever you're putting out there, make sure it's everywhere that you're putting yourself out there. So including your home base at your website.
This has been so amazing, Angela. Thanks for coming on and sharing all about branding and websites. And it's just, so much to make our head spins, but we need somebody professional like you to break it down for us and let us know how we can do it and how we can reach out to you. So on that note, can you share where we can best reach you online?
Yes, I am at Bouma, which is B as in boy, Ouma, designco.com is my website. I'm also on Instagram under the same name, and that's it. That's all. Those are the only two places you can find me.
Oh, that's
So,
perfect. That makes it so easy for our listeners. And I'll be sure and
yes.
put those links in the show notes. Well, thank you again, Angela. It's been so awesome to talk to you today.
Thank you, Kim. I so enjoyed it. I love talking about this stuff.
Oh, I know. I love your passion for it. Well, thank you so much. I love Angela's passion for author websites. Be sure to check out her free brand health checklist linked in the show notes. Like we've talked about before, marketing is simply letting your readers know you can help them. And what better way than to share exactly how you and your book do that than on your author website? No matter how you're marketing your book, social media, podcast interviews, guest blogging, advertising, likely your readers will be clicking over to your website to learn more about how you can help them. And if you need help crafting the copy that you would like to include on your website, you are in for a treat. In 2 weeks, my guest is my friend Lindsay Johnson, who is a brand messaging coach, and she's going to help us understand the difference between branding, copy, voice, and messaging, and how that shows up in all the marketing we do online as an author. I can't wait. That's all for now. See you next week for a new episode.